Trojan Sports Now.
The football team had a quick turnaround to prepare for their next game after losing to South Alabama on the Jaguars' home turf. With only 6 days to prepare, the team heads to Statesboro, Georgia to take on Georgia Southern. The football team is struggling after only one win so far this season. The team heads to Statesboro, Georgia to take on Georgia Southern, the current leader in the Sun Belt.
We go into a bad place after to get a W because of these suckers over there. Maybe the best team in the league, and very well disciplined and in their offensive approach and really their defensive approach too. They don't give up much. They try to keep everything in front of them on defense.
The players said they believe they can pull out a win in this game if they do their individual jobs.
If you do your job, I feel like we have a great chance to win this game. They're great at what they do. The quarterback, he's a great reading on the perimeter, and they have a great stable of running backs. But if you stay in your gap and play assignment football, I think we'll have no problem.
Quarterback Brandon Silver said he hasn't been performing to the best of his ability, but this week they have to find a way to win.
My play hasn't been as well as I, imagined to be. I haven't played up to my capability like I did early in the season, and just got to get back rolling, starting Thursday, and just got to keep executing. Just try to execute as much as we can, and just try to find a way to pull out a win.
The football team is 1-7 overall on the season and 1-3 in conference play.
The Troy soccer team will head to the Sun Belt Conference Championships next week in Mobile as the number 2 seed. The Trojans will face a familiar foe, UL Lafayette. Earlier this season, the two teams met and Troy came away with the win 2-0. Since then, the Raging Cajuns have a season record of 9-7-2, while the Trojans sit with a record of 14-5. The Raging Cajuns have had a tough time away from home with an away record of 2-5-1, while the Trojans have had an away record of 3-5. Head coach Jason Hamilton says that even though it's an away game for UL Lafayette, it will be a tough matchup.
Lafayette's our opponent, and they were a tough opponent when we played them. They're the only team that hasn't lost to South Alabama this season. They're coming off a big win here this weekend. So, we're just going to prepare for what we need to do, one game at a time. We're going to look at the things that we had success with against Lafayette and the things that we thought we could do a little bit better and just prepare for that.
The Sun Belt Conference Championships will start next Wednesday in Mobile.
The volleyball team is looking to bounce back and break its 12-game losing streak. The team heads to Arkansas to take on the 2 Sun Belt Arkansas teams. Troy takes on Arkansas State first. The two teams met earlier this season in Troy, and the match went 5 sets. The Red Wolves defeated the Trojans 3-2. Arkansas State is 8-4 in conference play and 13-8 overall. Troy will then take on Sun Belt leader UALR in Little Rock. These two teams met not too long ago, and Troy fell 3-1 to the UALR Trojans. Arkansas Little Rock is currently 12-0 in conference play and has an overall record of 18-4. The Trojans are currently 9-6 overall and 1-12 in conference play.
The women's tennis team wrapped up the Big Easy Tennis Classic last weekend. Now players such as Sanaya Oda, who made it to the semifinals in the first singles flight in the Big Easy Classic, will lead the Trojans for the Roberta Allison Fall Invitational this weekend in Tuscaloosa. Anya Kosovic and Julia Albuquerque will also be competing in the tournament. In the Sanford Fall round, Robin Kosovic had the help of Trang Hoon to win the finals in the first doubles flight. The tournament is set for this weekend.
The cross-country team has had several weeks off after their last tournament and are now preparing for the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. The team will head to the Sun Belt Conference Tournament on Sunday to compete in New Orleans, Louisiana. The last tournament the Trojans competed in was the Crimson Classic, where the women finished in 22nd place while the men finished in 25th. The team was able to compete against some conference foes that they will face in the Sun Belt Tournament, teams such as Georgia Southern, South Alabama, and Louisiana Monroe. And head coach Elliott Blount said his team is just trying to improve from last year.
The Sun Belt Conference meet, they're always pretty intense. The competition is there. We're trying to do better than last year. On the men's side, that would be moving up one spot. We were dead last year, so we're trying to improve on that. And on the women's side, I believe they beat 2 teams last year. We're trying to beat 3, 3 or 4. And I think the women have displayed the ability to do some good things in the conference, and they're ready. They're fit. We're relatively healthy. And we'll try to go from there.
The Sun Belt Conference Tournament will begin on Sunday in New Orleans. And every week we will be taking a look at our former Trojan football players and how they are doing.
Jacob Harrison gives us a look at this week's Trojan in the pros.
Thanks, guys. DeMarcus Ware was coming off his first 3-sack game as a Bronco last week against the San Francisco 49ers. And while it was expected he'd have a down week comparably, a no-stats game was very unexpected. The Denver Broncos held down the San Diego Chargers well for most of the game Thursday, but Ware failed to post any stats. Of course, this doesn't imply Ware was handled by the Chargers or that he played poorly, he just wasn't in on any tackles. The Broncos handled the Chargers 35-21. Ozzie Umenyiora and the Atlanta Falcons took a trip across the pond to face the Detroit Lions in London. Umenyiora failed to post any stats in his third straight game, but he and teammate Jonathan Massaquoi played very well alongside the Atlanta defense for 3 quarters, until the Lions surged from a 21-point deficit to win on a last-second field goal 22-21. And despite 3 first-quarter interceptions by New York Jets quarterback Geno Smith, none of them wound up in the hands of Leotis McKelvin. He didn't get the one Michael Vick through either. McKelvin did post 4 tackles, however, his 4th straight game with as many. The Bills won 43-23. And there's sad news for Elbert Mack this week. The Houston Texans released the cornerback Tuesday night. Mack's opportunities only came on special teams this year, and he had 6 tackles on the season. But being placed on waivers, Mack can be claimed for his current contract value by any team until Sunday morning. After then, he would become a free agent. Brendan Trawick did not post any stats as the Baltimore Ravens lost to the Cincinnati Bengals 27-24. And DeJuan Harris had 2 carries for the Green Bay Packers this week, his 2nd straight week with offensive stats. However, he only gained 4 yards. Also worth noting, this was the first game of the year Harris did not return a kickoff. The Packers lost to the New Orleans Saints 44-23. And Mario Addison and the Carolina Panthers defense finally showed up against the Seattle Seahawks, but the offense didn't show up. Addison had 1 tackle as the Seahawks won 13-9. And wrapping things up with Steve McClendon, the Steelers' nose tackle was expected to return from his shoulder injury this week. However, he was ruled out as the Steelers had an historic day beating the Indianapolis Colts 51-35. McClendon will once again be expected to return next week as the Steelers will host the Baltimore Ravens next Sunday night. And that was a look at your Trojans in the pros. Until next time, I'm Jacob Harrison. Thank you for joining me.
That's all the time we have for Trojan Sports Now. Check us out online at trojanvision.troy.edu to catch anything you missed.
For Clay Yeager, I'm Amy Austin. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Trojans!
Trojan Sports Now.